I want to talk about another character in the book, and that's Mark Burnett, as we know from Survivor fame and also Apprentice fame. And he was on top of the world about 20 years ago, and it also goes he goes through this 20-year arc, so to speak. He's been blamed for the Trump presidency, and when you talked with him, I mean, it was also, it seemed like at one point, a shell of a person. He was begging you to get into parties at Sundance. Can you talk about his transformation and who is Mark Burnett today in American society?
So Mark Burnett is the reason that Donald Trump is president of the United States. He created the image of Trump on The Apprentice. He also created Survivor. He's a very successful reality TV producer. But as Trump became more and more powerful and more people were blaming Mark Burnett for Trump's rise, even though he continued to remain very close to Donald Trump, he publicly withdrew from the public because he's not seen as a public person. He'd rather, I think, create a reality show than be part of a reality show. And so this book really explores his contributions to Trump, his creation of Trump, and the way in which he was behind the scenes editing footage of The Apprentice, because those boardroom scenes that we watch at home, sometimes they would go on for 4 hours. And George Ross, who's one of the boardroom advisors, said that things were moved around, people would smile when they weren't smiling, they could really create any story they wanted. And Mark Burnett was this Bengali that created Donald Trump, and this book really shines a light on how exactly he made us believe that Donald Trump was a good boss and a good person in the boardroom.
You've been covering The Apprentice for 20 years. You mentioned in the book at one point you even faked an audition to get in there and get the inside scoop. Covering Trump for 20 years, watching The Apprentice, and now really having the inside scoop of The Apprentice really being Donald Trump's origin story, what surprises you the most?
Right. When I was in my 20s, one of my first jobs at Newsweek, I actually auditioned for a season of The Apprentice just to see what they were doing. And I was so surprised because when I went to the audition, Donald Trump showed up and he wanted to see all the contestants and he was feeding off the crowds. It was really, truly a precursor to Trump being at a political rally where he was at a rally of Apprentice fans. And for me, covering the show, looking at the show, I still think it's a very entertaining show. It's a good reality show. But what I've learned in the show and what it's contributed to society is that this is the key. And a lot of political reporters, and I think a lot of people in the media that cover him now, aren't aware of just how important this show is in creating the image of Donald Trump. And they think he went from real estate to politics, but it's actually he went from reality TV to politics. And this book shows you exactly how he uses the media to get the attention he wants and to get the poll numbers he wants. And that's why he's continuing forward, even though there should logically have been a point where this should have stopped.
What point do you think that should have stopped, that, it just kept going and this was that launching pad for the Donald Trump that we all know today?
I mean, I think most of us thought this was over after the insurrection. And when Trump left the White House against his own will, it did seem like the era of Donald Trump in American politics should have been over. But like any reality star, there's always this idea of a comeback. And so he, again, uses the tricks that he learned in Hollywood and from being on a reality show to continue going. And right now, the rest of the country is really held captive to the Trump narrative still, all these years later.